think to watch or attend some of the city council meetings, that's probably the easiest way. I think following the local news. I mean, that's one thing that a lot of people don't do is keep track of local politics. People track national politics usually, but on local side, it gets almost no attention, even though it has probably some of the biggest impact on your life. But it's not as sexy as national politics, even though national politics actually has typically less importance or less relevance on someone's life. But a lot of people spend time there just because it's what you see all the time. So yeah.
And Palo Alto Weekly is a great source. Read it every week.
Weekly or
I have to read it every week.
There you go. Any other questions about this topic?
So, like, I go to gun. I think everyone here does.
Yeah.
And I've noticed that there's a lot of bikers. So then the cars driving there. If you drive, and if you're driving around 7:50 to 8 o'clock ish, it's really congested. So, is there like anything that you guys are doing to
congested in terms of bikes or cars?
I think both, because the bikes, there's a lot of bikes, so they kind of spill over the bike lane, and then that slows down the cars, and then it just creates a lot of stops.
Well, they have the Rastradero road improvements that they've been working on. Do you guys use that road much?
Rastradero?
No,
I don't see this.
Okay.
Sorry to use. Oh, I thought that Rastradero. Whenever I went to school, Rastradero seems to be really busy.
So you look at what main roads.
That's a very hot topic here. We've heard a lot of people come in, and everyone has different ideas. And the problem is the road is only so big, so there's only really so much we can do about it.
Yeah. So I think from the bikers, there's a lot of emphasis trying to make it safer. So I think a bike lane was added. So that makes it safer. I think the impact that has is it means one less lane for traffic, for cars. So there's only kind of so much space. I think the answer probably is more people biking, because bikes take up a lot less space than a car. And also, if with the car, unless you're driving the school yourself, if a parent's dropping off a kid, then they have to go back. They have to drive off to work. So that's like 2 trips, right, for every 1 trip that a bike would take. But I'd love to hear ideas that people have here in terms of what. I don't actually use this every day, so I'd love to hear people's opinion of what could we do to make it better.
I mean, realistically, without like changing the road significantly, I don't know if there's like a whole lot you can do about it. But yeah, so if they don't have any suggestions, go for it.
Historical perspective. 15 years ago, it used to be a 4-lane road.
Yeah.
So reconfiguring the road is not maybe a budget issue, but it's something you guys can think of.
Is to make it a 4-lane road again?
Well, it can make it 4-lane, but then at certain hours, take 1 lane out. Oh, there's a lot of people cut over.
There's one idea that I had, and some parts.
You want a sheet of paper?
How's it?
You want a sheet of paper?
Yes.
Okay.
Is to have bike protected or car protected bike lanes. So right now, if you look at the way the roads are configured, you have the sidewalk, you have a parked car, then you have a bike lane, then you have the actual traffic. Right? So what some cities have started to do is, instead of having the sidewalk adjacent to a parked car, is to have the sidewalk next to the bike lane, and then the parked car that protects the bike lane. So it's the basic idea is that bikers can feel safe, right? Because there's a parked car that's essentially a barrier from the oncoming traffic. And so if you do that, then the cars on the road could actually travel faster, because they're not right adjacent to a slow biker, right? Over who's biking. You have this bike protected lane, and then the other thing is that you don't have parked cars who have to cross into the bike lane all the time, right? So you have the slow pedestrians walking on the sidewalk, then you have the slightly faster bikers, the parked cars, and then the fast cars, right? So if the cars can go faster, then they can get more throughput, right? So anyway, so that's a suggestion that I've seen from other cities, but yeah.
Sorry, I have a question about like the cars and then like the parked cars like on your solution. Would that change the speed limit signs for the cars?
Yeah, so the basic idea is, so one reason why the cars have to be slow today is because it's a bike to school route, right? And there's a lot of kids with that bike. There's like a ton of schools on the scenario. So you can't have a car going like 50 miles an hour next to you, or a kid biking at 10 miles an hour. That's just a recipe for disaster, right? So the cars have to go a lot slower as a result, right? And if you go slower, that means throughput is slower, right? But if you have a parked car that's acting as kind of a barrier to the bike lane, then the cars can actually go faster.
Yeah.
Because you have like a ton of steel that's acting as a barrier to the bicyclist.
But I was wondering, if there's like a barrier of parked cars, then how can like bikes say go across? Because sometimes there's like a street over here and one bike and go across the lanes. How is that?
Yeah. So the place I saw like a lot of bike lanes is New York, and so like Manhattan. I'm not sure if have you guys ever been to Manhattan? No? Has it been there?
I've done that one time.
Okay. So a long time ago, biking in New York was like insane. You would like risk your life if you tried biking in Manhattan. It was just crazy, right? And what they've done is they've done bike lanes everywhere. Not everywhere, but most places now. I mean, with the parked cars. I think the rest of the area is not big enough to have protected bike lanes on both sides of the street. So it'd be on one side, then the bikes going each direction would be on one side protected by
Might
cars.
be able to,
Maybe.
because it's 4 lanes. Currently the middle lane, I thought.
Is there parking on both sides of the street? Right?
Yes.
There is. Oh, then you could. But the question is though, if it's on both sides of the street, then there's no issue, right? It's only the only issue would be is if you don't have parking on both sides of the street. But if the rest of it you have parking on both sides of the street, then you would have protected bike lanes on both sides. Then it's like regular traffic. Then there's no I mean, this makes cost to cost, right? So there's not any issue. But if you can't squeeze, two like protected bike lanes on car protected bike lanes on both sides, then you have to put both bike lanes together on one side. Then that's the trigger part. So in New York, the way they did that was they simply cross the crosswalks. That's how you do it. It's not a like a fancy solution. Just kind of the most obvious.
You're just not allowed to randomly swerve out in front of cars.
Yeah.
Which is okay, because that's what we're trying to prevent. So,
Exactly.
so actually, Jack, this might be a good spot for your question. So question, Larry.
I
Crossroads.
was just gonna ask about that.
All of everything going on down there.
Oh God.
Okay, so what's your thoughts about Ross Road?
I am not exactly a fan of what's happening. It's like I bike that route every day to and from school, and so do a lot of elementary school and middle school students. You have Fairmeadow, you have JLS right there, and even some going to Palo Alto the other way. Things are not great down there. Also, in front of the YMCA is just a nightmare. Since it's all it's bulged out so far, it's really hard for people to get in and out of the parking lot safely when they're going to their morning workout or whatever at 8 o'clock when everyone's biking to school and there are people coming in and out of the parking lot.
Sorry, you guys say something?
I was just wondering, what's the purpose of those islands?
Yeah, the ball belt. Yeah. So
By the way, because it seems a little bit counter to the solution you just said, which is you want to create a barrier between the bikes and the cars. And yet what Ross Road is doing is actually funneling the bikes and the cars together in the most constrained possible way. So
I actually wrote a 5-page report about this over winter break.
So we're all very curious. We happen to live in the neighborhood, so everybody I know that's anywhere around there, it's just like, how did this happen?
Yeah.
Like, how did money get spent to build this without?
And then the roundabout is now there, right? There's a roundabout there.
Yeah.
So, I'm a much bigger fan of car protected bike lanes than the current idea. But I'll tell you the rationale behind the current idea. The rationale behind the current idea is that if you make everyone uncomfortable riding and biking on a road, it becomes safer. That's the basic idea, right? So the idea is you squeeze everyone, all these different modes onto one road, and so drivers have to drive slower and be careful. Bikes have to feel careful. So it's the idea of a share. We share the road with the bike and the car. So that's the theory. Now, I almost never drive, right? So 90% of the time I'm biking or skateboarding. So that's my main mode of transportation. As someone that mainly doesn't drive, it's not a great experience, right? You definitely don't feel comfortable, right? You feel like you're going to get hit by a car, right? Because you have cars, like I've had times when, this car behind me, like, it's a Cheryl, right? And the car behind me is like honking the horn, like, hey, get out of the road, right? You're like, and so as a biker, you feel like there's a 1 ton of steel behind me and an angry driver, right? So you don't feel good.
And you're an adult.
And I'm an adult, yeah. Just think about like a little kid, right? And that's why I think the idea of a car protected bike lane is way better than the idea of making everyone safe, everyone feel comfortable. Now, even though it makes everyone feel uncomfortable, studies have shown that it works. That drivers will slow down, bikers will be more careful, that there's less accidents. But it's like it's increasing. I mean, the theory behind it is like everyone's uncomfortable. But it's like, so it may work, but I mean,
Yeah.
can there be a solution out there that doesn't make everyone feel uncomfortable? Because it's not really, it's kind of like. So, and that's why I every chance I get, I've been promoting bike protected bike lanes or car protected bike lanes, just because keep the cars where the cars are and the people where the people are, right, and keep them segregated. It seems to be a far safer solution. Unfortunately, all this stuff's already in the works, and so it is what it is. But when I talked to the chief transportation official, Joshua Mello, he has indicated that that's something that they're trying to do more often now. It's a bit of a newer innovation compared to kind of like the old way. But the old way does work. I mean, at least in terms of accident rates. But in terms of people feeling confident and comfortable riding, it doesn't work, right? I mean, it's very uncomfortable feeling. But it's like for me, I live in College Terrace, and Paris, we're in Barron Park, so I take the street over there.
Hanover?
Huh?
Hanover?
Not Hanover. It's just street that's just right over here. It's something like that, yeah.
Montedero or something.
It's a very, very narrow road. It's a Cheryl. Like there's no bike lanes.
Is it the one that leads into Gun?
No, it goes into Bold Park.
I think it's Montedero Road. I think, or Margarita.
Montedero. It's Montedero, yeah. So I take this every day. It's a 2-lane road, very narrow, and there's no bike lane, and it's a Cheryl, right? And I mean, there's at least 1 or 2 times a week that some car behind me is just like upset, right? Because you're supposed to like occupy the road, right, and slows the cars down, but like sometimes there's just an angry driver who just wants to get to work or do whatever, right? Want to get home, and I think the problem with the study is that it's looking at the results, which is less people get killed or injured, right, which is great, but it doesn't. The problem is if people don't feel comfortable riding, they're not going to ride very much. They're going to try to do everything possible to not bike or whatever.
Right? So it creates a form of confirmation bias and stuff.
Yeah.
If you're not riding your bike, then there's going to be fewer accidents, right? So,
well, no. So same. So the studies are actually done scientifically. So it's correct that it does reduce accidents. It does increase safety, but it does it in a way that makes people uncomfortable, right? And so and if you want more people to, back to the question, how do we get more, get more capacity? Well, if you get more people to bike, skateboard, or wherever, then that's a big part of the solution. And so, yeah, so I think stuffing everyone on the same road, that's the challenge. That's the downside of it, is that it doesn't solve the fact that it doesn't make people comfortable, especially if you're like a little kid, like you're like my daughter's in elementary school, right? And, like, my wife is really uncomfortable having her bike in the street, right? And do the Cheryl thing, right? With the big car behind her, right? Just like, yeah, just so. Anyways, so going forward, everything I'm pretty for this kind of bike protected lanes. So how would you guys feel about bike protected lanes?
I think it's a good solution.
Okay, so you guys think it's a good solution, you guys should write into council and tell my colleagues that too, because I think I've been pushing for this on council, but so on council, there are 9 people on council, city council. I'm the only one that bikes or skateboards to council. Everyone else drives. Even though I'm like further from city hall than most of my other colleagues, like they don't know what it's like, right? They don't
Understand.
They don't actually understand it. So what it takes is, if you think this is the better solution, you should write into council, like the city council, and tell them your opinion on this, because like I'm only one of 9 votes, and unless I get enough support, I can't change it. So this is something you guys could do.
Actually, out of curiosity, so there's that part. You mentioned that there could be more of the Ross Road kind of scenario. Plus, maybe that's procedurally. Like, what has to happen for the next 3 or 4 or 5 of those? And if these guys wanted to get involved in somehow, okay, how do you slow that down? Just curious how that would actually play out. Like, which other groups are involved, and which other besides council stuff.
Well, the Transportation Commission is involved. PayBack's involved, so it's Palo Alto Science Advisory Commission is involved. So they make recommendations to council. So, but if you look at who's on payback, right, it's all adults, right? There are no kids on there, right? Like there's no elementary school kids on there. Because if you ask any elementary school kid, I want you to bike on the street, share that road, make a 2-ton car behind you, slow down, and bike right behind you. Like, no kid's gonna say, "Oh yeah, that's a great idea," right? It's like incredibly intimidating, right? I mean, for like some of the elementary school kids, they can barely see them above the hood of the car, right? So it's like it's just a crazy concept, right? But that's what's supposed to happen, right? But if you're like, a 6-foot dude on a bike with a bunch of lights, right, and you've been biking for a while, no big deal, right? But what about the 7-year-old, the 8-year-old, right, on their bike going to elementary school, right? What about them, right? I mean, so that's the problem, though, is that it'd be great if like younger people were involved in city government on these commissions. But I'm not even sure that they even allow 18 and under on commissions. Maybe they should, right? But that would be.
Could have a 7-year-old governor in Kansas. So
There you go.
maybe they should
Yeah.
let,
Yeah.
Is it possible to just like did you know how the Ross Road things they have the speed bump?
Mm-hmm.
Is there no way to just like add to the plan a few 80-pound bags of concrete to fill in the holes they put in the speed bumps? Because that I think is one of the biggest problems, is because there's space just as far apart as a car's wheels. So from like someone in a car, they're trying to get someone like, oh, okay, it doesn't look like there's anyone here, and I don't think I can see anybody, and I won't be able to because the trees they're putting in have leaves on them. So I'm just going to go straight through the middle of the road so I don't hit the bump.
guilty as charged.
Yeah.
I mean, people aim for the gap in the middle when they're in the car.
Yeah.
Which was the best way to keep going as fast as you were before.
Yeah.
It's to not actually use the whole speed bump.
Yeah. I mean, that's yeah. I think I think going back to what I just said earlier, which is why I think car protected bike lanes is the right way to go.
Studies to support that. You mentioned the studies to support the stressful situation where you have both the bike and the car at the lane at the same time. How about your proposal? Support that?
So they're not as popular. right? So this is kind of a more of a newer concept. The kind of the concept that 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 has been going on for a while is putting cars and bikes together and making them uncomfortable and slowing everything down. And it actually works. It just kind of feels uncomfortable. Right? That's the issue. Car connected bike lanes just aren't that popular yet, right? And it's kind of weird, right? Because you would think that you have pedestrians who have just walking, right? You have nothing but clothing on, right? And like in terms of equipment, and then you have bikes which have even more equipment, and then you have cars which weigh a lot more equipment, right? You think that that's the more logical way, but the way things got started was cars parked next to the curb. So that's kind of like the standard, right? Everyone, like that's how cars have always parked next to the curb, right? And so to park on the other side of the bike lane is kind of a weird thing, right? So it's just this kind of this inertia, and had maybe in the early days when cars were first invented, that you had to start out with this trend, then it would have been normal, but it's not normal right now. So there hasn't, like in Palo Alto, you guys know of how many times you've seen this?
Never.
Like there's almost none right now.
I haven't
Right?
seen any.
Yeah, so that's the issue, right? Is that so there's not much, but there's a few cities like New York that's done this, like Manhattan. So in Manhattan now, when I go to New York, like you guys watch YouTube?
Yeah.
Okay. So YouTube, right?
Your audience,
Okay.
15-year-old
So
boys.
if you watch YouTube, you see a lot of people skateboarding in New York, and there's a reason why. It's because if you try driving in New York, it's like a total parking lot. It's like cars just literally don't go anywhere. But if you're on a skateboard or bike, you really are zooming. I mean, you could beat Uber, you could beat any other form of transportation just because you're moving and the cars aren't, right? So, so I think there's a lot of data from New York. Like I would never skateboard in New York. It's kind of insanity. But today, like I feel pretty safe because there's a big barrier protecting me and cars moving around, right? So yeah, I think it's just inertia.
I have another question, like regarding like drivers getting to the park cars, because like that's in the morning, there's like always swarms of bikes just like everywhere. So how would like the drivers get to the park cars if they want to get on the road?
You mean like you have the bike lane separated?
Yeah.
So that's one of the arguments against this, right? Is that now the bikers might be killing the drivers walking to the car, right? So that is a problem, but it's not a very common problem. So so it's kind of obvious that as a driver you have to kind of watch to see if the bike is there and crossing the road, right? But let's say you're not
Get across a 30-foot crosswalk, you can get across a 4-foot bike. Right?
Yeah, and also like let's say the bike hits you, right? You're probably not going to die, right? It's probably not going to get fit over either, right? I mean, that's not to catch a habit, but it's kind of like if your bike keeps going up. Both ways, 3 times speed, or this takes 4 feet to look both ways for you. You actually only need to go yeah. So that's
bikes usually come in like waves because of how the lights work, and so they come like there's like a bunch of bikes that come, and then it's empty, and then a bunch of bikes come and it's empty. So that it wouldn't be that hard to go when the bike was empty.
The other concern there, like over about that, is that the other more common concern, somebody pulls over to the bike, drop somebody off or do whatever, then they have to navigate their way back out. So I would say between pedestrian being able to get to their car safely versus the car being able to ingress and egress. Again, it seems like so. That is actually, I find terrifying when I'm in the car because you just don't you can look back, you can see what you can see, but I'm always afraid that there's going to be a biker that I just can't see coming fast enough where that's the moment you decide to pull out, and then all of a sudden something really bad happens because you just don't have the visibility always. So that's another reason I think it makes a lot of sense. It's interesting, is something they could just target for around schools? Because it seems like it's these main bike to school corridors where the issue of lack of comfort and even just that in and out scenario, because that people who do drive their kids in and out, or maybe it's science fair day, you have no choice, you have to bring something in. It seems like if they just concentrated that model there as opposed to maybe everywhere. Because I'm sure somebody knows which routes are the main.
And I think we're blessed in Palo Alto in that a lot of people bike. So when I was in high school, it's a long time ago, like very few people bike. I mean, not as much as like Palo Alto. Like Palo Alto, like on Churchill, I see in the morning, like the whole street has bikers. Like not just the front row, but like 20, 30, 40, 50 deep. And it's incredible. Right? You never, like when I was growing up, I never seen that. Right? There's not like just me biking by myself. Right? I didn't see like whole swarm of kids. So I think if you guys bike to school, you guys should feel blessed that happens here because it's actually safer, right? It's safer to bike in a group. Yeah, if you like this concept, you should write to council. Tell your friends.
So I wrote 4 emails on this sheet of paper. You want to take a picture of it. First one is the city council email. The second one is Joshua Mello, who's the Chief Planning Transportation Commission. The third one is the Planning Transportation Commission email by itself, and that will email all members. And the fourth one is my email if you want to email me and come in for another meeting just regarding a specific topic.
But basically, like, to make change, there's like 9 people, well, really 5 people on council that you have to convince for something to happen. And so if you want to see change, you need to write in, show up at meetings. That's really.
We actually had a Ross Road discussion. It was in January, yeah. There were a lot of people here, and there are quite a few people who were in favor of the new improvements.
Yeah.
Thought it worked.
I mean, I think a lot of people are like on the payback or on the bicycle, Palo Alto Bicycle Advisory Commission, and I think for professional bikers or people that bike a lot like me, it's like you kind of know how to do this, but it's like this is scary though. It's really scary for most people to like take the road and like. There are times when I'm on Matadero and just like 3 cars behind, like, and sometimes in that case I'll just pull over and let them go by, right? Just because it's like it's hard to really own the road like that.
Anyone have any final questions?
Oh yeah. If you were also on the doing car protective, once you get past the bike, our steering wheel is like on the right side. How do you get?
How the drivers get in the car. Yeah. So this is an issue that with this idea as well, which is that instead of maybe you get hit by a biker, you might get hit by a car. But the flip side of it is, how do you do that right now, right? How do you do that right now when, like let's say there's no bike lane, right? There's a car and there's a car coming right next to it. You have the same issue. It's like no better, no worse. So, but it's true, right? It's probably better to be hit by the biker than the car, right? So you may just cause the biker to flip over and fall like that, right? Versus breaking off the door by another car. Yeah, I mean, it's the same problem. The law street can be going up, or what you could do is you could make an extra space for the door so that it's not to be good. That's another way to get the space in the road. But yeah, it's not a good solution.
I have a question about like motorcycles. I'm not sure I'm finding motorcycles in Alto, but like, would there be like spaces for them like specifically for motorcycles, or would they just park them in?
Well, they just park them. Yeah. So what they do is they put them. Usually put them at like a bit of an angle, so that they have a lot more space. Okay, guys. Thanks so much for coming in. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
We're good, thank you.
Thank you, Max, for
Thank you very much for coming. Yeah.
And if you have another discussion about Ross Road all night, you guys can come in.
That'd be great.
Thank you.
Yeah,